Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
This week we are joined by Craig Hanks from the Legendarium podcast to go through our second installment of our Paul Verhoven Festival with Starship Troopers, 1997 film.
Let's dive into it!
Let's do it.
All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And we are joined here today.
I'm here too.
We're joined here by... You'll get your chance.
Damn it.
You wait. You wait until I tell you. Obviously, Our good friend Craig is back because we are doing a little deep dive into some science fiction territory again.
Yes.
Please, before we get too far into it, if you like what you see /hear, please like and subscribe to all the places and spaces that people normally consume media. We're on all of them.
Ooh, I like that.
Was that good? I covered everything. Real lickety split.
Places and spaces.
Places and spaces. So, Craig, I do believe that when we did our 101 as well as our 101 Part 2, which both have now aired, we did discuss Starship Troopers a little bit. I believe it came up when we were kind of talking about these alternative future societies. Does that
Right,
sound?
I mean,
does
how
that
could
sound
it
about
not? Right.
Completely.
Starship Troopers is this very neat vessel for a certain kind of vision of the future, right?
Exactly. Well, and I think that it does go to, and I kept thinking about this because, and I said this last week with Total Recall, and I obviously think the same thing about RoboCop, but man, I really wish that he would have kept making sci-fi films because he can so effortlessly get across so much information about the world that he's built, right? It's just, they're never exposition dumps. They're always done in these really fun, really clever ways where you get all this information and then you're like, oh, okay, I know what the world is like. And then way later, he'll do another little sprinkling at you of stuff and you'll be like, oh, that totally makes sense in this world, that also would be true. I think that's a really interesting thing.
Verhoeven also does not give a shit about source material at all. Like
he doesn't.
He's not apologetic about it either. So the original book, which I'm sure we'll reference here in a second, written by Robert A. Heinlein, but written by for the screen by the guy who wrote pretty much every single thing RoboCop, including the remake and RoboCop. I think it's called Returns, that was recently announced. He's done everything RoboCop. He's written everything front to end. That is his IP, and he wants it bad.
Really?
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
So I do know that when it comes to Starship Troopers, that Paul Verhoeven read the first 2 chapters and said that he was so bored that he couldn't finish it, and he just let his screenwriter do all that work. And he said, "Oh, this is awfully right wing. I'm not going to read this trash." And so he wrote, or he made a movie that's literally the opposite of the source material. But I'm sure we'll get to that.
Well, and I think that's and after doing some more research, diving into the source material, into the book, it is really interesting to go. And I wonder if part of it is that, I mean, is it satire even a little bit? Because it seems like that from what I saw online. I'm talking about the book, not the movie.
Oh, okay.
That the book, there's nuance of there seeming more like satire because it's so out there. It's so leaning to that other side into this sort of like, fascist ideology that it was like people are like, that some people were like just out now. Oh, it's so like right wing fascist or whatever, and then other people are like, well, he's doing a thing, like he's creating from whole cloth this society. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Craig?
So yeah, we did read Starship Troopers on our podcast several years ago, and had some interesting discussions about it. And it is, I know we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the book, so I'm going to try to boil it down a little bit. And he, like you said, he's doing an exercise here, but it's not a parody, it's not a satire. He really is exploring some ideas, and he's doing it in a serious way. But I think it would be you'd be going too far to say that he espouses every idea that comes up in the book. But that's not to say that he didn't bring them up. And I think some people find it really offensive, the idea that that you limit the ability to vote to those who have, performed whatever service to the state or, proved their worth as citizens.
And the book is guarantees. The book is 1950s, right? So like really the sort of lackadaisical youth that he's talking about are those damn beatniks, right?
Well,
we're even like pre-Flower Child.
No.
So his idea of like a lazy middle class was during a period of time like World War II-ish kind of, right?
His lazy middle class was post-World War II. So imagine you've got a bunch of like 18 to 25-year-olds storming the beaches at Normandy or island hopping in the Pacific and, dying by the thousands. And then 10 years later, the next crop of 18 to 25-year-olds are, wearing poodle skirts and dancing in their milk bars or whatever the hell they did back in the 1950s. I don't know. And so he saw what he thought of as kind of like a moral decay, where these people who had gone through military service and been through hell and back, they had a certain amount of, as he saw it, character and a clean cut attitude and, hard work ethic and all this stuff. They were serious. And then the next generation was a bunch of pre-hippies, dancing pre-hippies, right?
Totally.
I would totally argue that I think it's completely satirical. I mean, you can't look at the propaganda transition things in here.
You're talking about the movie.
Okay, you're still
I'm
talking
still
about
on
the
the
book.
book. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if we want to shift to the movie, that's why I say when I said it was the opposite. Paul Verhoeven is taking all of those ideas and putting a giant middle finger up and saying, "Here's what I think of your book."
Yeah, he grew up in, as you indicated, in like Nazi-occupied Netherlands. Verhoeven is, and people asked him, "Why are you doing this right-wing fascist movie?" And Verhoeven replied, "If I tell the world that right-wing fascist way to do things doesn't work, then no one will listen to me. So I'm going to make a perfect fascist world where everything is beautiful, everything is shiny, everyone has big guns and fancy ships, but it's only good for fucking killing bugs."
Well, I do think that there's something really interesting, and we talked about this when we did V for Vendetta, which is where source material and different people's interpretations of those things lie. And again, I think that, classically, they've done it to Alan Moore 100 times.
Sure. Yep.
They've done it to Philip K. Dick 100 times too, right? And I mean, I think it's always really interesting when someone sort of takes that original piece and goes, "Oh, I don't want to do that verbatim, but I like the ideas this is toying with because I can use as a jumping off point."
Yeah, Craig, where do you stand, Craig, on the book versus movie debate? Like, obviously, it's two different mediums, but how much should someone be, committed to that source material?
What? Oh, I see. So you're talking in general, not just with this particular movie.
Yeah, just in general. Do you have a stance on like, it's just a movie and whatever? Or
I think you can. Paul Verhoeven and this movie in particular are a very weird case because he didn't even read the damn book.
Right.
But I think you can make a book that is not the same. Like, you can deviate quite a bit as long as you maintain a certain level of respect for the source material. And that respect might take the form of responding to it in a way that the author didn't intend. Or, so in this case, it's people who haven't served in the military shouldn't be able to vote. And your response to that source material might be, well, F you. But you're still responding directly to that point in some way, instead of just dodging it and going in another way entirely. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it completely makes sense. Well, and I think of something like different in some ways, but the adaptation Sofia Coppola just did of that the Beguiled or whatever, the original book of it, Colin Farrell, I believe it is, that's in it, plays a Civil War soldier who's taken in by this household of women. One of the main characters in the book is actually a slave. She's a house slave that is there, and she plays a really pivotal role. Sofia Coppola didn't know how to write that character, and I think she felt like it was sort of weird territory that people would maybe get offended by her take on it. So she just took the character out, which was actually way worse, right? Rather than trying to either A, not do the adaptation at all, or B, bringing in some consultations to make her feel like, okay, I'm covering all my... She did nothing. She just took the character out, and people responded to it in exactly the way that you're talking about, which is like not even responding to the thing, but instead just being like, took it out, problematic for me, so I just got rid of it. And it's like, that's
ignoring
probably a really bad answer, right?
Ignoring that other people have opinions that are different than yours. Weird.
Whereas, agreed, Verhoeven here didn't read it, but I like that he pushed so far into the world to really try and explore the world. And, you think about it, at the time, people didn't get it, right? This movie got panned.
Oh,
people
it went terrible.
This is either just childish jingoistic bullshit, or it's fascist and it's blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, well, he did now you just watch it and I'm like, how did you not get from it how tongue in cheek it is?
It's amazing how dense some people can be. If you want to know how far Paul Verhoeven got in the book, as far as I can tell, there's the scene when Michael Ironsides is teaching the kids in their high school class, right? And it's kind of a weird scene where Rico and Denise Richards, whatever her name is. What's her name in the movie? Oh, who cares?
I kept writing Denise
Carmen.
Richards.
Yeah. Rico and Carmen are passing notes right there. He's making a little gif of them kissing or whatever. And anyway, in the background, you hear Michael Ironsides continuing his lecture about the virtues of military force and,
violence is a solution.
Yeah, exactly. They'll cut in every once in a while and actually take on the issue a little bit. But you can still hear him talking about that stuff if you listen instead of watching what's going on the screen. And that is... that's as far as Paul Verhoeven got in the book. And that is a scene that happens in the book where they're kind of talking in school about these issues. And so you only have to read about 2 or 3 chapters in the book to get where he got with it.
Now, I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about that scene, and I'll echo back to this later in the review, but there's a handful of scenes in this movie. Again, as I was talking about sort of this world building, this very... what feels in a lot of ways effortless world building that Verhoeven does in this film. This is one of those scenes where there's a number of different things happening in a layer. And as you were saying, Craig, you could pay attention to some things and not pay attention to other things and miss stuff. But if you're watching everything that's happening, it's incredible that this crazy, spooky ass reality is being cutely glossed over in this classic school flirting scene, right?
Yeah,
it's a total classic high school flirting scene. And in the background, you're hearing these terms like violence is the supreme gift being bandied about, right?
He says, Michael Ironside's character says, naked force has resolved more issues throughout history than any other factor. And you're meant to hear that and go how dare you? What a horrible thing to say. What a fascistic thing to say. Well, I actually really like that line, not because I think it's true, but because I think it's the other side of the coin of the thing that we hear all the time, which is violence never solves anything, which is just as stupid a cliche as the other one.
Yeah. Well, it's black and white thinking on either side of the spectrum. Well, I completely agree, and I think that's kind of why I said crazy spooky ass reality is because it's and this is a silly comparison, but I just remember in Woody Allen's Sleeper, he goes into his coma, and when he wakes up and it's 1,500 years later or whatever, and the doctor's like, you're too worked up here, and he lights a cigarette and he's like, smoke this, it's one of the healthiest things for your body. Right? And it's like, in the future they've realized smoking's super healthy, red meat is super healthy for you, right? Like the complete 180 from what we have here. And this has that same kind of cognitive dissonance where we keep seeing that, right? When all of the kids, fresh-faced kids, decide to join the service, we just kind of dissolve into this scene of them taking their pledge, and we only hear the last little tail end of their pledge, but it has to do with relinquishing their free will, right? They're like relinquishing their free will, and they're all so proud to do it, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, why did we just dissolve in on that? I really wanted to hear the rest of the pledge that they had to make.
I want to go back, Sherlock, to something you said, because it is really interesting to see the kind of the incremental changes or the back and forth changes that we get in society. So, you're talking about, oh no, cigarettes are very healthy for you. And we get this all the time if you read scientific literature at all, or even just the coverage of it, where 1 year coffee is, you need to drink a cup of coffee every day if you want your heart to be healthy. And then next year, it's coffee is the worst thing you can possibly put in your body. Right. And the same thing with like red wine and red meat and alcohol or whatever. Anyway, it's... I want to be careful here because it can get a little bit sensitive, but this idea that that Starship Troopers, the book, is espousing and that Paul Verhoeven is taking on is like, you have to serve the state if you want to be a full citizen and vote, right? That sounds insane to a certain ear, right? Well, who knows what it's going to sound like next year or 50 years from now. I'll tell you what, right now, looking around the world right now, I'm like, you know what? No, maybe not everybody needs to freaking vote. You're all a bunch of idiots, right? And okay, I don't necessarily think that, but it's not insane anymore, right?
No, you're totally right. I think that this, the part where I guess that's the thing that I find so brilliant about this movie is that it sets up one of the most classic, good apple pie eaten patriotic boy goes off to war, becomes a man story, right? And it sets up that whole story, and it doesn't ever deviate from it in terms of its plot points. Its plot points are very, very easy to predict, but what it hangs over it is all of these really wild concepts where he has there's the classic argument with his father. His father doesn't want him to go off to war. His father wants him to go to Harvard.
It's Harvard, right? And that's the end of it. That's like a threat going to Harvard.
Yeah, and he says, his father says, I'll take 10 lashings in this street square to keep you from going, right? And you just suddenly go, we got corporal physical punishment that happens in this society, right? Even though their houses are futuristic and all made out of glass, there's public lashings that happen, and you go, wow, that's kind of wild, right? It kind of
even though
continues
it's 21,
to shock you a little bit.
Even though it's 2197, how far have we actually evolved as a race? Yeah, I definitely fall on the side of probably not totally understanding this movie. I mean, I was a stupid high school kid in 1997, so like, it took me about 10 years to like actually watch this and understand. Like, oh, okay. I mean, just listening to looking at it, like it's kind of a silly looking movie, and they're all in these super futuristic suits, and that you read the IMDb description, it's humans in a fascist militaristic future war with giant alien bugs. It just sounds stupid and horrible, and but it is satirical and wonderful, and I don't know, I just I love that they treated it like an extra horny 1990s high school, but it's so campy and fun, like right away. I love these commercials with the Federal Network commercials. Like, holy shit, I am like rolling over. They're so funny. And it's just, they're handing kids guns and they're saying a world.
The kids are playing with the bullets, right? Yeah. Well, and I completely agree. And I love how they feel so much like the old World War II newsreels, right? That they would play in between the cartoons at the movie theater. That's exactly what they feel like.
Oh yeah,
those old newsreels.
As I understand it, he literally patterned them off of actual newsreels of the time, the propaganda.
Really? Would you like to know more?
Yeah, so it was. I mean, obviously, you couldn't do that at the time, right? You couldn't, click on would you like to know
click
more
on something.
But
Yeah.
the
Choose your own adventure.
there's the one with all the soldiers saying, "I'm doing my part, I'm doing my part," and then the little kid comes
Everyone
out,
is
"I'm
doing
my
their part."
too.
Yeah,
And everybody
yeah.
laughs like that's straight out of an actual newsreel.
Well, and that's
It
one thing I
seems
thought.
like it should be in Kentucky Fried Movie or something, though. Like, it doesn't seem real.
But you know what? So do the ones from Total Recall. I mean, this is a sci-fi Verhoeven trope. Is the media being interjected? The media of that time period being interjected into the film.
Would you like to ski Antarctica?
Here at the Family Heart Center, we feature the complete Jarvik line. Series 7 Sports Heart by Jensen. Yamaha. You pick the heart. Extended warranties. Financing. Qualifies for health tax credit. And remember, we care.
That flavor he loves so much.
We also get Port Joe Smith,
Oh yeah.
the Mormon extremist getting murdered.
Man, that is for such a small little audience that
I
just
agree.
is gonna get it in such a particular way where they're the radical Mormon sect,
Right.
And they even have a little angel Moroni up on the top of the fort.
And I was confused. The first time I ever saw this movie, I was really confused because I thought that the fort that they come to at the end of the movie was that same fort, but I don't
Me too.
think
It's
it
not?
is.
Oh, I thought
It's
it
not.
was.
I don't think it is
No.
because there's no angel Moroni on top of it.
Oh,
There's
that's
that.
true. That's true. Yeah, okay.
But yeah, no, and I think that it's like all of those kind of newsreel campiness bits are like as close to hitting you over the head as Verhoeven could get to being like, it's satire, you
Yeah.
idiots. It's satire.
I would
right?
be much more forgiving of the idiot critics who missed it if he didn't have those things in there. Right.
they're there.
If it wasn't in there, then it would be a much more subtle satire of these kids who lose their childhood and become busted up adults who've been through hell and been injured
Yeah.
and had their bodies ripped apart, and then come out it on the other side smiling about how much the bugs fear them. Just like this
Yeah.
bizarre coming of age story, which would be a lot more subtle if it weren't for "Would you like to know more?"
Totally. And that those things, well, and it's interesting too, because, and I read about this, that was one of the critiques of the original source material book, was that at the time, and this again makes me think there is probably, and I don't know anything about the author, but there were definitely levels of nuance in terms of sort of universe development that he was working with here in the way that the bugs are described and the way that the government talks about the bugs, because people are like, ooh, this is edging into territory of it almost seeming like derogatory racial slurs of the way that the only bug is the only good bug is a dead bug,
yeah.
right? And this whole thing, and then later they're
Kill 'em
stomping
all.
on the other bugs, and on the little cockroaches, the kids are stomping on them. But I was like, and obviously that was definitely sounded like was a carryover from the screenwriter who did go through the entire book and was like, oh, okay, like all of this has its placeholders. But I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Like, again, that's what makes science fiction so great, is that it's this amalgam for these other things, and that's why we use it that way, is for these deep, rich symbolism that then makes it way easier to talk about things and explain it, right, than having to like go through directly political machinations.
Are you
And so I'm
saying
like,
the bugs sucking people's brains out is supposed to mean something?
I mean, it's, listen, it's not always just a cigar, Palter. It's not always just a cigar. Sometimes it can be other things.
Sometimes,
That huge goopy thing coming out.
Oh, do you mean the penis coming out of the vagina?
I'm sorry. We'll be right back.
So if I can just briefly get a little bit modern in our commentary here. So,
Yes, please.
So you go back and you think, what do the bugs represent to you, Heinlein? Come on, you fascist, right?
Yeah.
Well, before we get, I think we should totally get judgmental about that and, judge the heck out of Heinlein and, whoever else, whoever thought in that way, right? I don't know that he espoused that for sure, but it sure sounds like it from his book. But before we get too on our high horse about it, think about our society today And it might be sometimes a little bit more subtle, but how, like, enemies lists and, dare I say it, canceling and the idea of creating social cohesion through enemies. It didn't go anywhere,
Tribalism.
right? And it's
Well, and I think I totally agree, and I think that I don't know. To me, it's like exploring those ideas. I don't know. I mean, again, and we've talked about this before on the show, but for myself, as someone who loves the work of H.P. Lovecraft, and knowing like what truly his big monsters represented, which, spoiler alert, they were black people. Like you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, right? You can go, these are really interesting mythoses that they created, and you can say, and they very likely were birthed from super abhorrent places, but now as an adult that's reading a book or watching a movie, I can go, oh wow, this is really interesting. This is a very interesting symbolic usage of these concepts, to think of an alien force as being potentially a stand-in for something else. Like, it's super interesting stuff, right? And so I like that.
And it's easy to look at that sort of thing and say, okay, so Robert Heinlein was I don't know, anti-Semitic or bigoted in some flavor, right? And then say, right, oh, so it's a terrible book. It's easy to do that, but we really ought to, as you say, be able to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, and be able to read something like that, or watch something like Starship Troopers and grapple with the actual ideas and say, okay, so the idea of holding voting rights away from the general population feels really icky to me. Why?
Right.
And try to figure out why it feels icky to you, and all that.
And what does it mean that Casper Van Dien's character has to go to war and potentially lose an arm in order to become a citizen of this place? Like that experience somehow gives him some new knowledge that he wouldn't have otherwise. And, I think that, just as you said, exploring those concepts is super interesting. And then embedding all of that within this kind of like 2-hour-long, really gory Saved by Umbrella episode. Like, you know what I mean?
So
like,
good. It's so good.
Because Casper Van Dien, I wrote it down, was cooked in the same easy bake, basic Patrick Bateman oven as Armie Hammer, James Marston, and Chris Pine. Like, he was made in whatever the same petri dish as those, like.
You mean Rico from Buenos Aires?
Dude, if that isn't exactly what a person of color thinks of when they think of a white person, then I don't know what is going on. Because it's just like, oh, it's, a white guy like Casper Van Dien, right?
All right. We have to talk about the casting then. If we're going to bring this up, we have to talk about how amazing it is. Okay. Now, there's plenty of other things to talk about with Neil Patrick Harris or Dina Meyer, whatever.
Yes.
Yep.
Michael Ironside's great. But Casper Van Dien specifically reminds me, and believe me, I'm going somewhere with this, okay? But he reminds me.
I love it. Let's get started.
In this role of Hayden Christensen, okay? Now, hang with me here. Hayden Christensen, Casper Van Dien, not great actors, right?
No.
But can be very well cast. And in both cases, we've got a handsome leading man who on the surface seems kind of charismatic or magnetic in some way, weirdly.
Chiseled jaw, blue eyes.
But then
scores touchdowns.
But then you look in both cases, you look in his eyes and you're like, oh, there's nothing there. Like,
it's kind of
you're empty, right? There's nothing happening behind their eyes. Okay. So I recently watched Broken Glass, starring Hayden Christensen. This 2003 movie about Stephen Glass, who he's a writer for the New Republic who makes up a bunch of stuff. It's a true story, and so you have this character who is really charming and gets people to go along with his stuff, but then it turns out he's kind of like this sociopathic liar behind all of it, and so you need somebody who's charming and handsome and dead behind the eyes. And Casper Van Dien serves exactly that same role here, where you have Rico, who is, he's captain of the football team. He becomes the leader of the lieutenant, right? It's Rico's Roughnecks at the end. You need somebody who can fill that role, but then if you stop and think for just a second about who he is, he's incredibly stupid, He's vapid. He's violent. He is.
He doesn't wonder
he's a
too
caveman.
much about the path that he goes down.
Kill
He's
them
not
all.
thinking-
Yeah.
He's not thinking too much nuance about this path. Yes, I love this.
So
This
you
is
got
what-
perfectly cast.
Well, this is what Ebert referred to as the economy of the actor, right? If you have the right person in that role, then you don't have to do a lot of other work when they show up, right? So it's like, if you're like, well, maybe we trust him, maybe we don't trust him, you're like, great, Gary Sinise. And you're like, shit, we're done. We don't have to do any other character development, right?
Yeah, you guys take all these deep thoughts away from this movie, and all I took away was Jake Busey needs to be in more shit.
Oh my
He's
gosh!
awesome.
I saw him recently in the Netflix or whatever the remake, whoever remade. What's the vampire movie from Robert Rodriguez?
Dust Till Dawn?
Dust Till Dawn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's in that one, and it's ridiculous. He's exactly.
He's just got that smile in the teeth like his
He
brother.
really
Just-
inherited his father's teeth. He definitely inherited his father's teeth.
As much as I love RoboCop, this is, I think, one of my funnest Verhoeven times. I think he does a really good job here.
Right up until your punishment review.
Yes, we're looking very and really honestly what we're capturing here in this festival is like 10 years of his career where he went Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Starship Troopers, and RoboCop. That's the 10 years, and then everything outside of those 10 years, terrible. Hollow Man and like stuff like that.
But
where
here's
it
the
just
thing
didn't
I'm wondering
end up working.
too. Like, this is one of the reasons why I'm
This
really
is his prime,
fascinated.
is what I'm saying.
What I'm really fascinated to watch Showgirls is because this movie, first of all, no one's ever fucking said that before. I'm planting that flag.
Planting some flag, Sherlock.
Yeah, but I think like what fascinates me about it is he thought everybody was going to get this movie the same way they got RoboCop, and when they didn't, he was really crestfallen, right? And I'm really interested to see if there's not hidden depths, but I'm just interested to see, is there a joke he was making that people didn't get with Showgirls? There might be. I have no idea. I'm no
excited
idea.
to watch.
But I'm
excited
very
to watch.
interested because I feel like he's very smart. But you know, who knows? Let's move forward here because we're. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. Did you guys know that this movie is 4 seconds away from being rated NC-17?
Really?
They cut out 4 seconds of a decapitation to make it R.
Dude,
and
that's-
honestly, outside of the co-ed showers and the violence, I think they say fuck once in this movie.
But
And
the
so,
violence
like,
again. This is
it
your
looks
Rob
great.
Rob
It looks
Bottin,
great.
man.
And I said this about Total Recall, but it looks great. Like, you know, the awesome tech. The tech here is actually kind of awesome. It may look kind of silly, but the principles behind what they're doing actually seem pretty realistic.
So that is why the book took off the way that it did. One of the reasons the book took off wasn't because of its ideology, but because of how cool he made this this far future military unit, and he spearheaded the idea of the armored trooper, the thing that we get, you know, in Warhammer 40K or StarCraft
Totally.
or whatever. This, the Marine suit that they wear into battle.
I'm sure it was
the
an
first one to do it. It's similar with Paul Verhoeven, where there's all this stuff that we've talked about for the last 40 minutes or whatever about the concepts and the ideologies behind the story, but ultimately there's some really it's great filmmaking, it's great looking, and some of the tech that they throw in there is fun, and watching the ships fly through the Return of the Jedi pipes and all that stuff. The effects are great, the gore is really well done, the scenes are really well shot. Like it is a great movie.
Well, I'm sure the original book was probably part of the influence for James Cameron's Aliens, right? Which again have that kind of roughneck, the helmets and the machine guns, and like you have the ship that drops down the little rover, and then all the Marines come out of it. It had to be a similar influence, I would imagine.
Could be.
I didn't get past the first few chapters of the book, so I don't really know. But was the
That's all right. Neither did Paul Verhoeven, so don't worry about it.
But that was a joke. That was a joke. But did the book have the love triangle in it, Craig?
Honestly, I don't remember.
It
doesn't play
from
much of
what I
a
read.
factor. I think everything's a lot more straightforward, and Paul Verhoeven is, like you guys have said, making a sort of after-school special tied to an NC-17, gore fest.
And God bless him for it. God bless
so
him for
perfect.
every minute.
And it's recruiting you till the end.
It was doing nothing like that. So,
But man, why didn't Rico get with Des earlier? Why was he even messing around with Denise Richards?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well, I mean...
She looks like Rob Bottin built her. She doesn't look real. She doesn't look... She's one of his incredible creations. Her head's going to go... at any minute.
Yeah. Did you notice, Sherlock,
real quick, Denise Richards, same boat as Casper Van Dien. Perfectly cast.
Yes.
Because of how
Female
awful
version.
she is.
Yes.
Right. She.
Yeah.
Looks,
You ever see a poodle when firecrackers start going off and they're like, because they realize they're too stupid to live? Like, that's kind of similar. Yeah.
Did you realize her captain in all of this is Sue Ellen Mischke, the heir to the O. Henry fortune from Seinfeld?
Yes. Thank you, God. I couldn't place her.
The braless wonder.
I couldn't place her through this whole thing.
I'm sorry, Adam.
Oh,
could you,
Pulcher.
Pulcher, could you do the actions again for
The sway? No, we got it.
Oh,
already.
okay, all
That's
right.
good.
Oh my God, thank you so much. It's like I couldn't sneeze. Since I watched it, I was like, what's she from? And I looked through her IMDb and I was like, I haven't seen any of these Lifetime movies. What the hell
Me
is
neither.
she from?
I dove deep and I'm like, who is that?
Oh, I appreciate your
Everybody's
work.
in this movie. Dean,
Amy Smart's
Dean
in it
Norris
for,
shows up, and
Hank from Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Marshall
Bell. Yeah, Marshall Bell
again.
And also, obviously, Ironside's two Verhoeven regulars.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Clancy Brown. My God, Clancy Brown. That whole like boot camp sequence. I love Clancy Brown's.
He's so good.
Punchline
You want to
of
take me down?
Medic.
Come take me down.
Yeah,
I dare you.
I love that stuff. It's so good. And I like
Such a fun rewatch.
I love that Jake Busey's character is not his antagonist. That is not Rico's antagonist. That seems like what would happen.
At
and
first
instead they're
it does,
buddies.
yeah. He's
They
Iceman.
could have easily played. They could have easily played.
could have
that.
been his Iceman. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, perfect.
One thing I want to mention, and you mentioned this earlier, Pulcher, but talking about those sort of layered scenes, like the classroom scene with Ironsides talking about violence as being a gift. The other layered scene that I think is a brilliant scene, actually, is that shower scene.
Here we go.
Yeah,
All right, justify the scene, Sherlock. Here we go.
Because I will justify the scene. I think that there are a ton of layers here. We hear about how the military will pay for your schooling if you go to school, that you need a license to have children, and that you have to have served in order to be able to get into politics. And so that's happening on one layer, and it's just a conversation. But the second layer is that, again, obviously, shockingly, the men and women are all showering together, but there's no sexual harassment. There's no oogling over each other. Instead, nudity has nothing to do with the scene to the characters themselves. They're all roughnecks, right? They're all there together. Or I guess they're not roughnecks yet, but they're all like in training together, and they really are being considered to be equals in this way that actually makes the scene really brilliant. And yes, there is just gratuitous nudity for the audience, but the camera isn't even really treating it by like panning up and down them. The camera is also moving around to them having this very real conversation.
So
And I
what you're
thought, like,
saying is you would like to know more about this perfect society in the future.
I would. I'm going to click more. Well, I'm just saying,
wanna
okay,
know
well, here you go. If you compare this scene to De Palma's scene in the original Carrie, that is an oogling scene, right? The camera is moving up and down all these girls' bodies, and you're just
cells,
like,
yep.
there's no point to this until Carrie has her period in the shower and they do the plug it up scene, which is a pivotal scene. But the 4 minutes before that, you're just like, dude, Brian, what are you doing, dude? Like, we don't need all this, right? But here, I feel like it's the opposite, where it really is like, we're supposed to say, oh, these are all equals. They're all just here to be soldiers. They're all grunts together. And I thought it was really interesting, actually.
That's actually a great point. I think you did it. I think you took Craig's challenge and justified it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think you could easily look at that and just think pointless nudity, but I actually think I completely agree with you on that.
I just thought it was really it's surprising how much rewatching it, because I did the same thing as you, Pulcher. I saw this when I was younger and I was like, oh, it's a great like popcorn movie. Like I watched it a bunch of times with friends and was like, oh my god, it's so corny, it's so funny. And then as I got older and watched it again, I was like,
hilarious.
I know, well that was the thing. When I watched it when I was older, I was like, am I the only one that thinks it's fucked up that his civics teacher ended up being like the Marine lieutenant? Like, talk about indoctrination of the children, right? Like his and like all of them are, right? Like that's why they all like have missing limbs and they're all scarred and parts of their bodies are missing, is because like they've all served their country. That's why they get to like have regular jobs, I guess. And I was like, wow, there's a lot more going on in this movie than I gave it credit for when I was a teenager.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, how could you?
100%.
When I saw it as a teenager too. I think I was 13, 14 years old or something when I saw this, and it was my second boob movie ever.
What was your first?
Natasha Henstridge in Species.
Oh, I saw
And
that.
she walks around without a kid on through most of that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Nicely done. I know. I'd say Species is like the rebooted version of Toby Hooper's Life Force. I don't know if you ever came across that one.
Nope.
Oh, that girl's naked through the entire movie, but she's also an alien. She also comes up to horny men because she's naked, and then she sucks out their life force.
Oh,
she's a space vampire.
Kind of like the big bug at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Same thing.
Awesome.
Couple last stray thoughts here. Mazzy's Star is such a great song cue for a military bar brawl scene. Whose choice was that?
Yeah,
They're literally fighting, and it just
great song though.
Comes. I mean, it's a fantastic song, but I'm like, not my military bar brawl song.
Yeah,
just not.
He has some weird music cues in his movies, I have to say.
But that's probably one of the weirdest. I thought that was very, very strange. Yeah, awesome. I don't know. I loved it. I think it's a great movie. Last passing thought that I'll leave, and I'm going to throw this nugget out and see what you guys think. Have you seen this online where people are talking about that the Buenos Aires destruction was actually a false flag that was done by the military? And
the bugs didn't actually attack you.
The bugs didn't actually. That's what got everybody to go to war, but that it wasn't
There's no
actually
footage of them actually destroying anything or taking over. Yeah, I did read that theory.
Okay.
Craig, thoughts?
Yeah, okay. Sure, whatever. There's conspiracy theories now. Are we really conspiracy theorizing about freaking Starship Troopers? Like,
I mean,
I don't know.
What are you doing with the rest of your evening?
I'm gonna go punish myself with a later Paul Verhoven flick.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
And when I say punish myself, I mean abuse.
We know what you mean.
he means no one's getting out of this thing unscathed.
Well, Craig Hanks, thank you very much for joining us. Please go follow and listen to the Legendarium podcast. Wonderful stuff if you're really into fantasy and sci-fi books. You guys are a whole network now. You guys are blowing up.
Sure. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, sure.
You're like a cinematic universe.
We have a fan cast, and I feel like if you have a fan cast, then you've made it. So
wait a minute. So somebody does like a Talking Dead about you guys?
I think it started... So basically they do what we do, but it's like a bunch of our fans who like got impatient that we weren't getting to enough books. And so they got together and they're like, all right, we're gonna do a Legendarium offshoot and do some of these other books that they're not getting to.
That's awesome.
What?
Yeah.
That's like Synecdoche. Like that's like now they're like, does one of them dress up as you? Like how does that work?
No, I think it's more like a Talking Dead thing. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Craig, for joining us. That was an
Yes.
awesome conversation. Next week, we'll be getting into Basic Instinct, 1992.
Holy crap.
A Paul Verhoeven non-sci-fi movie, actually. So
No, but just
be good.
just
Just
as
as
many
classic.
men's asses. Yes. So that's good.
Well, one man's ass. Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's fair.
Awesome. Thanks again, Craig. Guys, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, you guys. We are now we have been for the last couple of years, edging into territory of the zeitgeist that all these movies took place in, theoretically, right? So whether you're talking V for Vendetta takes place in 2020, whether you're talking about, isn't it Blade Runner that takes place in 2019? Mm-hmm. All these movies, we're now living within this era that all these things are pushed into.
Back
So
to
if
the
you-
Future Part 2.
Perfect. So if you could actually make a movie that was what actually things are like right now and somehow beam it back to the 80s and be like, the year is 2020. How disappointed do you guys think people would be?
So I think you could, if you were to just describe it to them, be like, we
Yeah.
have the internet, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what's the internet? And you start explaining the internet to them. Well, it's this thing that it connects all of our computers, and not just the computers that you're used to, not just your Apple Macintosh.
Yeah,
but
not the big one with the
but
spinning reels.
The supercomputer that you keep in your pocket is connected to
Yeah.
every other supercomputer in the world in everybody else's pockets. And, it just this whole world of knowledge and connectivity and all that stuff. And they're like, that's awesome. So what happens? And you're like, Twitter?
Yeah.
And they're like,
yeah.
oh, fuck you. What did
Yeah,
you...
Symbolism.
My
Yeah.
dream. Oh.
Well, and that's exactly it. Is like, to me, I'm like, I thought of the exact same thing, Craig. I was like, okay, so it's the internet, and you describe the whole thing, and they go, so you can go into it, and you're like, no, you're still sitting in a chair,
The files
looking
are
at a
in
screen.
the computer.
Yeah, you're
Exactly.
like, no, you're not. It's not Johnny Mnemonic. You're not going inside of it and like flying.
Tron.
It's not. Yeah, it's not Tron. It's not the Lawnmower Man. It's none of those. You're still sitting on your own stupid flabby ass looking at a screen the same way that you are right now in the 80s playing Lode Runner.
Yeah, but
right?
4K, man. 4K.
Yeah. It
But
looks
you can
so
see every
real.
hair, every
I mean,
follicle.
There's just no way, right? Like, it would still just seem, they'd go, that's it? That's it. That's all. It's 2020 and that's it? That's all?
You're
That's
like,
all
what's
we've
the-
done?
what's the
flying
name of
cars?
What's the name of the golden girl that was in Starship Troopers?
Rue McClanahan.
Yeah, Rue McClanahan. You're like, so you're explaining 4K to somebody, and they're like, why would I want to see Rue McClanahan in 4K?
I don't want to see any of the Golden Girls. I mean, maybe B. Arthur. Anyway.